So we're going to, I know earlier you guys discussed the Valencia principles, so we're not going to go too much into the group agreement and everything like that. If you do need to refer back to the Valencia principles, it's going to be on page 35 of the packet that was given to you. But I'm going to talk with you guys a little bit about trauma-informed culture for the youth. Working with Boys and Girls Clubs, we work with kids between the ages of 6 to 18 years old. So we see our kids grow up, and we see the different obstacles that they face. We see the different things that they overcome. And, like we said, with us reading the room, we noticed that a lot of our kids are going through a lot of different things. And just understanding childhood trauma for us is something that we're diving in very, very deep with. And looking into childhood trauma, we looked at first at what is defined as. Childhood trauma is defined as the experience of an event by a child that is emotionally painful or distressful, which often results in lasting mental and physical effects. The signs, it's okay. You can go back. Go. There it is. Some of the signs to look out for when it comes to childhood trauma. Thank you. Is fear of separation from their parents or caregivers. You notice that maybe they're eating poorly, they're losing weight, they feel guilt or shame for something they shouldn't feel guilty about, abusing drugs, having eating disorders, etc. So if you look at someone and you notice that they've been, that person, you get to know that child and you see how they are, and then you just notice a change in their behavior. You notice a change in their mood. Maybe they're crying when, they could be crying when their parents are coming to pick them up. All of a sudden they're having like this breakdown. You're trying to wonder like, hey, everything was fine when I talked to little Johnny. And, I noticed that things have changed in their behavior. So looking at the different signs, seeing the different things that trigger the kids is something that we definitely look into. Childhood trauma causes include having accidents. You notice maybe that they're bullying, have a dysfunctional household, they're suffering from a loss, abuse, stress, living conditions, violence, or family culture. I know for me, I grew up in a strict Haitian household. So there were things that we weren't allowed to talk about. We weren't allowed to say. You couldn't bring it up or anything like that. And you think growing up like, okay, it's what I know. And then when you get older, you're just like, wow, we noticed as a kid, maybe you weren't allowed to express yourself. You weren't allowed to say what was going on, or you were scared to say what was going on at home. But now we're teaching our kids that speak up. Or we're looking out for you. We're noticing the changes of your behavior. And then we might not ask you a direct question to figure out what's going on, but we're going to work with you to figure out what is going on. You can go to the next slide, Ms. Opal. When it comes to creating a trauma-informed culture, we're asking that you realize the widespread impact of trauma and look into the different ways you can help. Trauma is happening. It's not something you can sweep under the rug. It's not something, we don't talk about this in this house. It's happening. It's happening. The kids, the different things are affecting them more than it used to affect us when we were younger. Or when we were younger, we didn't realize that it was traumatic until we became an adult. Until you're in a situation, you're just like, oh, wow, okay. I didn't know that's how it wasn't supposed to be that way. But first we have to realize that trauma is happening and it's happening in different ways. Also recognize the signs and symptoms of traumas in the clients, the families, the staff, and kids and others involved in your program. Look out for those different symptoms that we said earlier. If you notice that they have a fear of separation, or if they start crying, or if they're bullying, just recognize those different signs. Respond by fully integrating knowledge about trauma into policies, procedures, practices, and settings. Once we see trauma happen, once we see that it's going on, making sure that you equip yourself with those tools, with those resources that you need so that you can look into how can you deal with this. Sometimes these issues, they could require a little bit more help. They could require a teamwork. Like Miss Opal, Miss Cheryl, that's my team. When it comes to dealing with trauma, how do we go about it in our clubs? How do we go about it in talking to our staff about it, looking out for the signs? We're working with our group, we're working with our team to be able to respond with it. And also resist re-traumatization of clients as well as staff. If you know that person has certain triggers, or if you know that family member makes them feel a type of way, or if you interact with a kid and you know, okay, they might not take too well to maybe a male in authority or a female into authority, you know, you try to do your best to accommodate for that child or that person that you deal with. You can go back to the slide, Miss Opal. Sorry. A trauma-informed child and family service system is one in which all parties involved recognize and respond to the impact of traumatic stress on those who contact with the system, including children, caregivers, and service providers. Programs, agencies within a system infuse and sustain trauma awareness, knowledge, and skills into their organizational cultures, practices, and policies. They act in collaboration with all those who are involved with the child, using the best available resources to maximize physical and psychological safety, facilitate the recovery of the child and family, and support their ability to thrive. You can go to the next one. You can go to the next one. Some of the things that we do when it comes to just making sure that our members, our kids have a safe, safe social emotional learning space while they're at the Boys and Girls Clubs. We have different things that we do with our kids. One of the things that we do is we do a group agreement. This is a copy of a group agreement that we have at my Boys and Girls Clubs. We sat down with the kids and we asked them, how do you want to feel when you're at the Boys and Girls Club? What can we do to make you feel safe while you're at the Boys and Girls Clubs? Group agreements are a shared vision that a group creates in order to build an emotionally and supportive environment. It gives youth an opportunity to share how they want to feel and create expectations for how everyone would treat each other in their group. One of the things I want you guys to notice with our kids, you know, the first column, it says, how do you want to feel at the club each day? The kids, they said they want to feel happy. They want to be emotionally safe. They want to be excited, encouraged, and inspired. What will we do to have these feelings every day? They say do something good for them, setting and respecting boundaries, having a positive attitude. My favorite, show me that you believe in me. That show me that you believe in me. That was one of our third graders that actually said that. I was like, okay, girl, I got you. And the next one is smile. And then what do we want to do when we have conflict? We want to talk to each other. We want to talk to a staff. We want to work together. We want to encourage each other always. And of course, stay positive. So this is what our kids came up with of how they want to feel every day when they walk into the Boys and Girls Club. And we have this group agreement posted up in really big posters in our program spaces so our kids can be reminded, so our staff can be reminded of how we want to feel when we walk into the Boys and Girls Club every day. You go to the next one. The next thing that we do for our kids is that we do emotional check-ins. Like we did earlier today, you know, we asked you guys to do a word that described you. We asked our kids, it's not so much to just ask a kid how they feel, but also to, you know, just diving in deep, giving them the opportunity, coming in creative ways. So this on the picture it shows the emotional check-in that we did with our second graders. Emotional check-ins help participants learn to recognize emotions in ourselves and others, and to develop strategies for regulating or managing those emotions. So with our emotional check-ins, each of the kids behind the little circles has their name on it. So the kids, they'll come in and they'll put their little sticker of how they feel that day. So the staff is able to recognize how they feel. They can determine, you know, if I need to talk to them a little bit more, if I need to check in with them a little bit more before they leave. So each of our different areas, every group has their own version of a different emotional check-in, but this helps the staff know how that kid is feeling today and if that kid needs just a little bit more extra support that day. Emotional check-ins have the potential to benefit both youth development professionals and youth in the following ways. It helps them improve self-awareness skills, so it helps them be aware of how they feel. It increases understanding of emotions in self and others. They encourage a culture of emotional safety and sharing and build supportive relationships. Shameless plug to the movie Inside Out. Boys and Girls Club have a curriculum about it, and it helps it helps the kids. It talks about feelings and tells them that they're okay to feel the way that they feel. So, but that's something that we watch with our members as well, and so that they can be in touch and in tune with their feelings and everything. So, if that's something you ever want to see, you want to have a discussion about, the movie Inside Out is a great way to go. Yes, and also, with creating this the trauma informed space for our members is creating that space. When a kid walks in or a person walks in, how do they feel? How can you make them feel that it's okay for them to share? It's okay for them to lean onto you or to tell you how they feel. What are different things that you can do? You can create that space. We have Boys and Girls Clubs that have 100 plus kids. We have Boys and Girls Clubs that got 20 kids. But you want to make sure that when they walk in, that child knows this is my second home. This is my home away from home. I can be myself. I can say how I feel. I know that somebody will listen to me. It won't just be, oh, hey, how you doing? And then we just keep it moving. No, someone is going to actually take into consideration how I feel. So different ways of creating that space is doing community builders. You see that we have our staff, our shout out board. So the kids, they shouting out their peers, they're shouting out their staff. It's something to come in and maybe you had a bad day and you look and somebody gave you a shout out because you were just their friend that day. When the kids come in, giving them a warm welcome, knowing their names. Yes, knowing their names. That means that you know who they are. And also recognition. The kids want to know that you see them. You see them, that you're actually seeing them. Something that I'm learning in my journey through Boys and Girls Club is asking the kids, how do you want to be recognized? Like we as adults, we want a plaque, we want this, we want that. But sometimes the kids, they just want a little thank you. They just want you to stand in front and just be like, this person did well today. But, so just make sure that you guys are creating that space for them. So now I'm going to move on to Miss Opal. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Anna, for that amazing presentation. Even though my slide was all over the place, you were so gracious and you just kept it moving. Professional. All right, everyone. Thank you so much again, as I said before, for joining us. So Miss Anna shared some best practices that we at Boys and Girls Clubs of Central Florida are incorporating on a daily basis with our youth. Okay. Now I am going to move to the next section where we are going to talk about some best practices that we employ with our staff. Okay. All right, let's see if I can do this. So, trauma-informed culture for staff. Oftentimes when we think about trauma-informed culture, we think, okay, what does that mean, right? We know that trauma it can be a number of anything that happened to you that has a negative and adverse effect on your life. So it is important for us to not just focus on how we support our youth, but we have to focus on how we support our staff as well, because we have to make sure that our staff has in them what it is we are expecting them to be pouring into our youth. Okay, so here we are in terms of what we do. Oops, I'm sorry. Next. Okay, so phase 1 with Boys and Girls Club, we have what we call the continuous quality improvement cycle. And that pretty much is where we assess, where we plan, and then we implement. Similarly, this is what we are doing for our trauma-informed culture that we are trying to create for our staff. So phase 1 is building readiness. In this phase, we invited the club directors to participate in our organizational-wide trauma diagnostic. And what that basically was about is the directors, we have 35 different sites, and we asked the directors to look at their site and see what we're doing in terms of trauma. There's specific questions that we're asking. Are the staff being trained specifically on trauma? Are the practices that we're employing are specifically trauma? Do we recognize trauma? A bunch of questions that informs us as to where we are. Then we invited all of our 500 plus staff members, regardless of their position or their role in the organization, to take this trauma informed skill assessment, because we firmly believe that when people are aware of their own trauma, then they can make decisions as to how they're going to move forward, right? If I have trauma, I'm aware of my trauma, it helps me to understand differently. If I don't have trauma, but I'm aware of trauma, it also helps me. So having the staff being aware of trauma and their own experiences was the next thing we did. After that, we built a framework to support ongoing professional development for all staff, specifically trauma-informed trainings. And those trauma-informed trainings may be the basics of trauma. It may be teaching staff about the group agreement, the community builders, the check-ins, making sure that they are solid with those best trauma-informed practices. We've also identified current best practices that align to a trauma-informed approach that supports our staff, right? What are we doing already in this organization that is supporting our staff who are experiencing trauma, who have experienced trauma, and to prevent further trauma? Okay, that's another thing we do. And finally, in this phase of building readiness, we form that internal trauma-informed team to lead the organization's approach for the youth, the staff, and the families. And on that team in our organization, Anna, our presenter, Ms. Cheryl, myself, and several others who have either shown great interest in understanding and working with trauma, or who have been certified to deal with trauma. Moving along. So in the second phase of our trauma awareness, is our trauma awareness phase, right? And let me just move this so I can get to that. So what does that second phase look like? And as I said before, it's a continuous quality improvement. So sometimes things that you see in the first phase, you will see in the second, you'll see in the third, and you'll see in the fourth, because it's cyclical. We are making sure that we're not just looking at it and putting it to the side and saying it's done, but we're continuously looking at it and seeing how we can improve. So facilitate ongoing trauma-informed professional development for all staff. That's so that they can really, really dive deeper into their own awareness of trauma. Okay. And again, as I said before, a variety of courses that we have offered to our staff. We've also committed to an increased foundational knowledge of key trauma-informed concepts for staff, regardless of their positions. Because what we realize is oftentimes, because we were so focused on the youth, we were realizing that a lot of these things that we are seeing and that we're identifying, we're committing to for our youth, our adults, our staff had gone through them and are still struggling through them. So our mindset is, how can we pour into those vessels that we want to pour out of? And that's really, really making sure that we are doing our due diligence. The next thing in this phase we do is identify and take advantage of opportunities to partner with community agencies that can support our staff with workshops and therapeutic services. And some of those agencies, we've partnered with Valencia Peace and Justice, we've partnered with Aspire, we've partnered with NAMI, Go of Great NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness in Greater Orlando. We've partnered with a variety of Advent Health. We've partnered with a variety of trauma-informed organizations that can either provide trainings and workshops for our staff, or they can provide services for our staff to get support for their own trauma and their family's trauma as well. So the next phase is trauma responsive, right? We can learn all this information, we can do all this training, but what are we doing? How are we behaving? How are we responding, right? That's vital. That's very important. We talk about being responsive to our youth's need. We got to be responsive to our staff needs as well, right? So here in this phase, we use trauma-informed practices in interactions with our staff. As Ms. Anna said, re-traumatizing is something that we are very cognizant of, and we know how easy it can happen. So we are very, very, very intentional about making sure that, we are paying attention to those practices that can be or has been or can potentially be negative for our staff. Okay. A culture, creating that culture, right, where we're being responsive. I think about maybe 3 years now, Ms. Anna or Cheryl, we've incorporated what we call a culture committee, and Cheryl is a part of that culture committee. And what
it's been about 3.5 years now. Yeah.
3.5 years. Okay, thank you. About 3.5 years, we we wanted to do something for the morale, the way staff was feeling, with everything that was happening. So a culture committee was formed. Here in this culture committee, the culture committee pretty much engages the entire organization and take back information to the leaders as to how the staff who participated in the surveys want to be treated, want to be recognized. Different initiatives that they're working on is all being driven by information that they're getting from the organization when they put their surveys out, when they have their meetings, and just listening to the staff and hearing what the staff's needs are. And Cheryl, I don't want to put you on the spot right now, but I think our culture committee is so vital because so many things have been accomplished. If you can just share some of the things that you guys have worked on, I would love to.
Sure. Absolutely. When we first started, our staff pay was only at $9 an hour for our program assistants at 20 hours a week. We have continuously moved up. We went to 10 and then 13, and now we're at $15 an hour for our staff. We weren't permitted to take any time off in the summer because it's our biggest time of the year. So now we're permitted, our staff can take up to 3 days off within the summer. And it doesn't have to be in our first week that we're closed for prep, things like that. Appreciation, twice a year, we have $15 per staff to spend on lunch or a night out or something like that, that we can send in a request. And we get to really pamper our staff a little bit and take them to dinner or have lunch brought in, something like that. We could go to the movies. We could do anything we wanted. So there were some big key factors of that appreciation for what we do and how we recognize them. A lot of it comes from us as directors, and they wanted to hear it from our admin staff, from our COO, from our CEO, and getting that opportunity to take that back to our staff, that this isn't for me. I didn't pay for this. It came from our organization because they appreciate you, has made a world of difference in our morale and in for me, the turnover of staff, I've retained my staff now where it had not been that way previously. So it's definitely been a help, and it's helped personally because this committee, then we reach out together, and you're not alone in what your staff is coming to you with, and it's formed bonds with my coworkers because my county is a little bit further than everyone else from each other. So having a committee like this to really hit the initiatives of the people, as our government is for the people, by the people. So this is the committee, by our people, for each other.
Thanks for sharing that, Cheryl. And just want to publicly thank you and the rest of the team for the amazingly hard work that you guys are doing, because it really makes a difference. And as I said before, with what we do, our continuous quality improvement, everything is cyclical, right? Now, even in the trauma and the trauma response phase, we are still seeking those partnerships that are going to support our team members and leverage professional support for our staff. And Cheryl also talked about, elevating our organization's recognition practices. That is so vital. And it definitely adds to the morale. It adds to just the way staff come in motivated and energized and feel, that they can move mountains. And it's just a beautiful thing. All right, let me move along. So our last and final phase is our trauma-informed phase, right? Now we can build all of this up, we can respond, but what is it showing us, Here we are proactively looking at trauma-informed improvements and celebrating our successes, right? We've worked hard. We are not just going to say, oh, we did it. No, we are going to look at what we've done, look at where we started, look at how far we've come, and celebrate and make sure that we know that we've done a good job. Okay. Second thing we do in this phase is we continue to facilitate, as I said, ongoing trauma-informed professional development opportunities for all staff, regardless of their position. At every stage, we are providing professional development, because one thing I know is, in order for us to move the needle, education, knowledge, empowerment is priority. It is the key. So as I said before, we are making sure that the best practices that we are employing, we are not just keeping them to one department and say, okay, finance, this is how you do things, or marketing, this is how you do things, or HR. No, all departments will engage all staff with best practices that are saying we are an organization that know better, that is informed, and we're going to make sure that we are being responsive to what our staff's needs are. And the last and final thing in this stage is we demonstrate intentionality and commitment to trauma-informed approaches and practices. Now that we have gone through all of this, we are not just going to stop. We're going to continue. We're going to make sure that we are all the things that we had done in the past, making sure that we're doing the trainings, we're implementing the best practices. All of those things are not just stopping. And here, as Anna said earlier, emotional check-ins, that's not just for the kids. We're encouraging that our staff have the opportunity, when they clock in that there are mood meters, emotional check-ins, that they can be present and share if it's something that they want to do, how they're feeling. So that if there's anything that can help to support, we catch it. And we're not letting our staff suffer in silence and struggle through the day without reaching a hand out to help and say, I am here. I got you. We're in this together. Okay. We want to make sure that we are practicing these best practices, not just for our youth, but for our staff as well, because of a lot of our staff have experienced trauma, are still experiencing trauma, and will continue to experience trauma. So we want to really, really make sure that we are doing our due diligence to support our staff and to be there for them so they can be there for the youth we serve and the families we serve. Thank you so much for your time. I am going to turn it over to Curious Cheryl.
Thank you, Optimistic Opal. Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. So as I talked about in the beginning, I'm going to talk about trauma-informed culture for our families. Our families sometimes get forgotten. They come in or they phone, I'm here to pick up my child, those kind of things. And we have to be careful that we don't forget them. They need to know that they are the most important link in this child's life that we care for. As Miss Anna said, we are here for ages 6 to 18. So their family is their first teacher. That is their first social educator. That is who they have. And sometimes our families have that trauma that don't allow them to show and model a positive interaction and those social cues that people pick up on. Go ahead, Miss Opal. So how do we define family? Family has a lot of definitions. If you ask 3 children, you're going to get 3 different definitions, 3 people. But it's technically from the Webster's Dictionary, it's a group of 1 or more parent and their children living together. It's all descendants of a common ancestor. Or my favorite, which is usually what my family consists of, Miss Opal and Anna included in that, is a group of people who rely on each other for support and share in the care for one another. Family trauma is an event that can cause stress response in the family, whichever definition you use for it. And the responses can trickle through all facets of the unit, the family unit, whether it's those family you choose, the family you're thrown together with, or the family by birth, by blood. The examples of trauma that can hit, as Anna mentioned earlier, physical abuse, sexual abuse, war. Our children in Ukraine right now are going to suffer this the rest of their lives, not knowing what they're doing. We've got gangs and violence. Food instability is a great big one of a child who doesn't know where their next meal is coming from, especially in the summer. And then you have death, whether it be of a parent, a loved one, a best friend, because unfortunately we lose our youth way too young in our world today due to some of these factors. Go ahead, Miss Opal. So how do we help? What does the Boys and Girls Club do? How can we make a dent in this trauma? We have adopted food delivery. We had this prior to COVID, and COVID just ramped it up. We get weekend meal boxes that we can give to every family. We have produce. I had meats and milk and cheese and yogurt and all those things that I was able to form the community partners with, as Miss Opal talked about, getting those in our community that want to help our families, help our children. We have scholarships for summer. I am very blessed with an advocate here in Claremont, Florida, in South Lake, that a church does their Lenten donation. Right now, I already have over $3,000 in scholarship money from the public. This isn't including what the organization gives us. And this makes a difference, even though our costs are at least a third less that what our local ELC is, it's still hard for some parents to afford that $40 a week. So to have them be able to pay $20 a week and know their child is in a safe place from 8 till 5:30. We had a discretionary fund that I believe some of our board members and local community partners started. And I, for one, myself, submitted applications for our families. It helped pay for gas. It helped pay for their rent, electric bills. We were closed from March 17th until June 1st of 2020, and we were able to help pay for childcare for some of those youth that we would typically serve. And we've helped pay medical bills. So those things definitely help the family take that trauma and be able to focus on it, because they didn't have to focus on everyday needs for their families. Ms. Opal? So what are some family resources? We talked about a lot about our family resources, our community resources. We have held trauma-informed workshops about ACEs, which some sessions in the last 2 days. Adverse childhood experiences. I myself was shocked, as Ms. Anna said, to find that I had probably 7 out of 10 of these within my childhood, and how they determine what trauma is. I'm like, no, I wasn't abused. I didn't do, yeah, my mom spanked me. You know, my father was a Philadelphia police officer. So yeah, this was part of discipline. This wasn't abuse. But when you look back, it said, all right, getting beat with a metal towel bar at 4 probably was along those lines of abuse. But I learned about that and learned how I can then help others who are there. Our simple local 211 services. There's a service called AuntBertha.com that's nationwide. You put in your zip code, tell them what you need, and it sends you to local resources. So that's not just Florida, that's not local. One of a hotel in North Carolina, you run into somebody, you can give them this website, just put in where you live, and they let you know every resource that is there. We have the local ministries that provide food, toys, those kind of things that our kids deserve, but often forego to just make ends meet. Holiday gift help. We have an adopt a family program. I had a family of 4 children this year, ranging in 15 to 9 years old, that were able to have Christmas gifts for their kids, the clothing they desperately needed, but also some fun stuff, art supplies and crafts, video game, gift cards, things like that. We've had the education and art packs when we were closed to keep the loss of learning at a minimum. Take home these objects. We have art packs that the kids are supposed to take home. They don't want us to keep them at the club. We have those materials. Take them home, because a lot of kids don't have that. And the picture you see here is of a little girl and her cousin that I gave this art pack to. And as you can see, I got this video from mom later after she picked it up of how excited they were to have something new to do during COVID. Ms. Opal? So this here is a family that I was fortunate enough to meet. This is Adriana, Mary is the grandma, and Ashton are 12, and been working with them since. And grandma's been raising them due to abandonment and drugs. Their mom has passed away since I met them due to an overdose, and dad just would rather raise his girlfriend's children. So how does that feel to these 2 young people that are phenomenally amazing people? As all the children and people we come in life, we all have the potential, but we need to know that they're taken care of. Grandma worked at the Dollar Tree. She'd been there 14 years, working hard. She had a heart attack, had no one to care for the kids. I was like, call me. I will come sit at the hospital with them. Do what you need to do. Knowing that we are there, giving them food, taking away that food instability and the trauma that can cause at the same time. We were able to help her with her phone bill. That helped her then keep the Wi-Fi that the kids were using on the cell phone for virtual education. So thinking about, I need to call her and see how they're doing, because they're at my old club, but definitely keep in touch. We get together for Christmas and go to lunch. And Miss Opal? And finally, family trust. A lot of families, a lot of people, you know what? My kids are hungry. I can take the food. I can take the help for my phone bill. I can take the electric bill. I have that. But the pride of saying, I'm going to trust someone. I know that you're not going to go talk about this to someone else. I can talk to my colleagues without a name. They don't know this family, but they need to know that they can trust me, that I'm not going to judge them. You know, we want to gain the trust of the youth, but without the family, they go and undo what we do over the weekend. They don't have that because they go home to someone without. So if we form that trust, and how do we do that? Just the same way we do with the kids, that warm welcome. You know, sometimes that phone will ring and it'll say Honey Bell on it. And I could say, hey, would you like me to send the kids out? I know it's her. I know her voice. Well, no. Hey, honey, how are you doing today? Or, hi, it's Zeke and Zariah's mom. Can I have? Well, no. Zariah's mom, you're Honey. You are a person in yourself. And now when she calls, she says, hi, it's Honey, instead of I'm Zeke and Zariah's mom, showing them that they're worth more than just being a parent. They're worth an individual. They're worth their own name and their own personality and who they are. They're more than what the world just sees, especially us as a parent of their children. We want to make sure that we can get the whole story if they trust us and know that we're not going to judge on that. And sometimes it takes, you know, I see you're really having a bad day when they come in. How are you today? Take that minute to just stop and say, what can I do for you? Do you need a hug today? Can I give you a hug because you look like you need it? And sometimes you get yes, and sometimes you go, I really appreciate it. But hey, COVID, how about a fist bump? You know, those kind of things. But a phone call, an email. As an organization, we made phone calls. How are you? Do you have enough to eat? How can we help you? What resources do you need? We did them weekly throughout COVID until we came back in. Maybe, hey, I saw Johnny had a hard time today. Just want to make sure if anything's going on at home that I can maybe help or just address for him to know he's not alone. We just want to be that listening ear so we can build the trust so they're not focused on that, and then they can start to heal from the trauma that they have. Okay, so we talked a little bit about this as we need to care for our staff, we need to care for our families, and we need to care for our youth. But how do we pour from an empty cup? We don't. We cannot pour from that empty cup. So we were going to do a breakout session, but we've had so much information, we're not going to have time. So what I'd like you to take away from today, self-care is the practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's own health, and the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness, especially during stress. So there are 3 areas of self-care: our personal, our professional, and our spiritual. So what we were going to do is have you talk about these together and come up with ideas. What I want you to do is take these ideas. Miss Anna, Opal, and I all did this in a course for trauma-informed care through the Department of Human Resources, DHS. And how can you look each week in your personal, professional, and spiritual needs and self-care? Personal can be a bubble bath. It can be stopping to get that cup of coffee. Professional, taking a lunch. Don't sit at the desk through lunch and eat because you need to take that, even if it's only 15 minutes. Take that time, close your computer, put on some music, relax yourself, and eat your lunch in peace, that you're not going to have the hiccups because you scarfed it down too fast because you're on to the next task or between meetings. And spiritual, you can be religious or faithful or just spiritual. It does not have to be a faceted religion. You can say, okay, I'm just going to intune, whether it's yoga, just deep breathing, count into 5, count out to 5, breathe in and out. Just take that minute for yourself. But what can you do? Maybe focus on what you define as the most difficult. It's usually that professional. So we want to make sure that professionally you're taking that time, that you're not getting weighed down by what's going on around us, and figure out what you can do. Make a list, look it on your calendar, put it on there. Today, I'm going to stop and I'm going to meditate for 3 minutes. 3 minutes is more than you have right now. So you can't pour from that empty cup. Make sure you're filling your cup so you can then focus on your staff, focus on your peers, focus on the youth that you may be serving as we do, and the families that you come in contact every day. So we are at 11:15, but until they kick us out, if there's any questions, please let us know.
Yes, self-care is real. Self-care is real. It is so real. Please take time out of your schedule to tend to your own needs. Yes, 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 yes. Does anyone have any questions for us? We are more than happy to answer any questions at this time.
I just want to say, way to go, ladies. It's a tremendous, y'all have done a lot of work. And I love how you have that whole, the whole aspect of trauma-informed care, from the workplace to the families to the kids, and it all works together to, you know, sort of improve things. So good job.
Well, thank you. I have included my email in the chat. If you know, you have any questions later, I can reach out if I don't have the answer. We have a great network here through Valencia as well, that we've had a lot of training, so we can get some answers and some resources if you need it as well. So please feel free to reach out if you need any assistance or questions.
Ms. Anna, do you have any final things?
Just want to thank you guys so much just for coming into our session and everything like that. You know, we talked about self-care and pouring from an empty pot. What I've learned in my walk and in my journey is there's things that, you know, there's things we got to take the time and set the time to deal with and everything like that. And when you interact with people and you see a little bit of yourself, just remind that sometimes we have to see how far we've come, we have to look back sometimes. So when you see a little bit of yourself in someone, you know, humble yourself first and be a model. Like Ms. Opal said earlier, model the way. We work with kids, so we see a lot of trauma. You'd be surprised at what a 9-year-old is going through. They shouldn't go through that at 9. They shouldn't go through that at 18. They shouldn't go through that at 6. You shouldn't go through that through 36, 46, 56.
Absolutely.
Whatever it is. But take the time to put the air mask on you first.
Yes.
For the person.
Yes.
We're so caught up in our profession. We're so caught up in what we do every day. You forget to put yourself first, and you deserve to put yourself first. You know, trauma is a big thing. We see it in all different levels and everything, but continue working through it. That's what we're doing. We're working through it. We're not perfect. We're not going to always have the right answers. The kids, they know we're not perfect. You know, they know, but they know you're going to stand with them and you're going to work with them together. Whether you interact with kids, you interact with their families, you interact with whoever it is, whether we call our kids our members. We don't say students. You know, whether you interact with the members, the client, the staff, whoever, whatever, you know, we're working through it and we're working through it together. They say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise a human being.
Yes.
Know who is in your village.
Yes.
Everybody plays a specific role. You play
and remember, progress is progress. Yeah. If you got to take 3 minutes this week for you and you didn't get 0, that is progress. And then maybe next week you'll get 4, and then maybe 5, and then maybe, like Marianne, way to go, has a massage schedule.
You know.
Take that time for you. Like I said, it could be, for me, it's a phone call to my best friend who lives in Washington State, which is 3 hours difference. So we got to make that work, and we take that time. So progress is progress is progress. Miss Opal?
Yes, progress. Just thanking you all again. And what I call this portion of my work is healing through serving. I'm healing my own self through serving, because I see a lot of me in a lot of the people that I encounter, from the children to the staff to the families. It's all there. So we owe it to ourselves, y'all. Right, Sunshine, Sheena? Just want to thank you all for joining us. You are all free to go. You're dismissed. Definitely, please reach out to us if you need anything. If you can use some resources, we are here for you to support you. That's what we do. Thanks again for joining.
Bye, everyone. Have an amazing Friday.
Happy Friday.
Now I'm going to do some
Fun
self-care with my
Friday.
grandbabies.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.